18-year-old Michael O'Connor stood at the Family Feud podium with his hands trembling slightly, not from the excitement of being on television, but from the weight of carrying a legacy he wasn't sure he was brave enough to honor. The question Steve Harvey had just asked seemed simple enough. Name someone you consider a hero, but for Michael, it touched the deepest part of his identity crisis and the shadow that had defined his entire life. "My dad," Michael said, his voice strong, despite the emotion behind it. Firefighter Robert O'Connor, FDNY Ladder Company. 21. He died in the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001, trying to save people he'd never met. The Family Feud studio fell into the kind of respectful silence that comes when 300 people simultaneously recognize they are in the presence of something sacred. This wasn't just a game show answer. It was a son's tribute to a father he barely remembered, spoken with the kind of pride that comes mixed with grief, admiration, and the crushing weight of trying to live up to someone who died a hero. Beside Michael stood his mother, Susan O'Connor, 45 years old, and carrying 17 years of widowhood, single parenthood, and the complex challenge of raising a son whose father had become a legend he could never quite touch. Susan had learned to navigate the delicate balance between honoring Robert's memory and helping Michael understand that he could forge his own path without being forever measured against a ghost. Steve Harvey felt the familiar tightening in his chest that came with recognizing profound loss and unimaginable courage. As someone who deeply respected first responders and understood the weight of family legacy, he could see in Michael's posture and expression the struggle of a young man trying to honor his father's memory while battling his own fears and doubts about whether he had what it took to follow in those footsteps. Let me take you back to how we got here. Michael O'Connor had been 15 months old on September 11, 2001, too young to remember his father beyond photographs and family stories. Robert O'Connor had been 31, a 7-year veteran of FDNY Ladder Company 21, when he responded to the call that would cost him his life and make him one of the 343 firefighters who never came home that day. Robert had been the kind of firefighter who lived and breathed the job, someone who ran toward danger when others ran away, but who made calculated decisions based on training rather than just courage. "Your father saved at least 12 people that day," Susan would tell Michael. "He went back into the South Tower 3 times before it collapsed. That's who your dad was, someone who couldn't leave if he thought he could save one more person." Growing up, Michael had been surrounded by reminders of his father's heroism. The FDNY community had embraced Susan and Michael as family, with colleagues regularly telling Michael, "Your dad used to carry your picture in his helmet. He'd say, 'This is my son, Michael. He's going to be a firefighter, just like his old man.'" The expectation that Michael would follow in his father's footsteps had been implicit from childhood, but the truth was more complicated. Michael was terrified of fire, not normal caution, but paralyzing fear that grew stronger as he understood how fire had killed his father. "I know Dad was brave," Michael would tell his mother during his worst moments of self-doubt. "But what if I'm not? What if I'm just a coward who's too scared to honor his memory? What if I freeze up when someone needs help?" Susan had tried to reassure Michael that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite fear, that his father had certainly felt scared, but had chosen to do his job anyway. But Michael's trauma seemed to go deeper than rational understanding could reach. By high school, Michael had pursued other interests, been accepted to Columbia's engineering program, and begun imagining a future that didn't involve burning buildings. But every 9/11's anniversary brought back the weight of expectation and the guilt of potentially disappointing his father's memory. "What would Dad think of me going to college instead of the fire academy?" Michael had asked his mother, the question carrying 17 years of struggle with identity. The Family Feud opportunity had come through the FDNY Foundation for their American Heroes Week. The foundation thought appearing on television might help Michael work through his complicated feelings about legacy and his own future. During the drive to Atlanta, Michael had been anxious about how to explain his complicated relationship with his father's legacy without seeming ungrateful. The Family Feud studios had been energizing, providing temporary respite from his internal struggles. During the family introductions, Michael had presented himself with the respectful confidence that his upbringing had instilled in him. "I'm Michael O'Connor," he had said clearly. "I'm 18 years old, and I'm from Queens, New York. This is my mother, Susan, and we're here representing my father, Firefighter Robert O'Connor, who died serving others on September 11th. The audience had responded with immediate, respectful applause, and Steve had approached the family with the gravity and respect that such an introduction demanded. "Michael, Susan, first of all, thank you for your family's sacrifice," Steve had said, his voice carrying genuine reverence. "Your father was a hero in every sense of the word. Tell us a little bit about how you keep his memory alive." Michael had looked at his mother, then back at Steve. "We try to live with the same values he had, putting others first, being brave when it matters, taking care of our community. It's not always easy, but we know he'd want us to make a positive difference in the world." The game had progressed with Michael participating thoughtfully and confidently. The O'Connor family was playing against the Martinez family from Texas, and both teams had been respectful and supportive, understanding that this was about more than competition. During the second round, when Steve asked for things that require courage, Michael had buzzed in with "following in your father's footsteps," earning the #1 spot on the board, and a meaningful look from Steve, who understood that Michael was speaking about more than just career choices. But it was during the fourth round that the moment arrived that would force Michael to confront his deepest fears and hopes about his future. Steve had announced the survey question with his usual energy, not knowing that he was about to ask something that would touch the most vulnerable part of Michael's identity. "Name someone you consider a hero." The question hung in the studio air, and for an 18-year-old who had spent his entire life living in the shadow of heroism, the answer was immediate and complex. Michael had stepped up to the microphone, and for a moment, all the conflicted feelings about legacy, expectation, and personal fear crystallized into something simple and pure: love for his father and pride in what Robert had represented. "My dad," Michael had said, his voice carrying clearly across the studio. "Firefighter Robert O'Connor, FDNY Ladder Company, 21. He died in the World Trade Center on September 11th, 2001, trying to save people he'd never met." The studio had fallen into respectful silence, 300 people recognizing that they were witnessing something sacred. Steve Harvey had slowly set down his index cards, understanding that this was a moment requiring more than standard game show response. "Michael," Steve said gently, "that's a powerful answer. Your father was absolutely a hero. Tell us what it's like growing up as the son of someone who made that kind of sacrifice." Michael had looked at his mother, then back at Steve, and for the first time in years, had spoken honestly about his struggle without worrying about how it sounded. "It's complicated," Michael had said, his voice growing stronger as he spoke. "Everyone expects me to become a firefighter like my dad. The FDNY has been like family to us, and I know they're all hoping I'll join. But the truth is, I'm scared of fire. Really scared. I want to serve others like my dad did, but I don't know if I'm brave enough to run into burning buildings. Sometimes I feel like I'm letting him down." The audience murmured with sympathy, understanding that Michael was sharing something deeply personal and vulnerable. "I love hearing stories about my dad's courage," Michael continued, "but I wonder if he'd be disappointed in me for being afraid of the thing that killed him. I want to honor his memory, but I don't know if I have what it takes to follow his exact path." Steve felt his chest tighten with emotion. Here was a young man carrying the weight of an impossible standard, trying to live up to a hero, while battling trauma that no one seemed to understand or address. But what happened next was something that no one in the studio, not Michael, not Susan, not even the producers, had anticipated. During Michael's emotional explanation, a man backstage had been listening with tears in his eyes. Chief Patrick Sullivan, current chief of FDNY Ladder Company 21, the same company where Robert O'Connor had served, had been in Atlanta for a firefighter conference and had attended the Family Feud taping as a guest of the production company. Chief Sullivan had served alongside Robert O'Connor for 5 years and had been one of the firefighters who had searched for survivors in the rubble after the towers fell. He had carried Robert's helmet out of Ground Zero and had delivered it to Susan at the memorial service. For 17 years, he had watched Michael grow up and had seen the young man struggle with the weight of his father's legacy. When Michael spoke about his fear and his doubts about disappointing his father, Chief Sullivan knew exactly what Robert would have wanted him to do. He had contacted the production team, asking if he could share something that might help Michael understand his father's true wishes for his future. "Steve," Chief Sullivan whispered into the host's earpiece, "I'm Patrick Sullivan, chief of Robert O'Connor's old company. I have something that Michael needs to hear, something his father left for him." Steve's eyes widened as he understood what was being offered. This wasn't just a game show anymore. This was about to become a moment of healing that had been 17 years in the making. "Michael," Steve said, "there's someone here who knew your father, someone who has something important to share with you. Chief Patrick Sullivan from FDNY Ladder Company 21. Would you please come out here?" From backstage emerged a distinguished man in his 50s, wearing his FDNY dress uniform, carrying a manila envelope that had been sealed since 2001. Chief Sullivan approached Michael with the gravity and respect of someone delivering something sacred. "Michael," Chief Sullivan said, his voice carrying the weight of 17 years of brotherhood and loss, "I'm Chief Sullivan from your father's company. I served alongside your dad for 5 years, and I was one of the firefighters who looked for him after the towers fell." Michael stared at Chief Sullivan, immediately understanding that this man represented a direct connection to his father's final days. "Your father was my friend, my brother, and one of the bravest firefighters I've ever known," Chief Sullivan continued. "But he was also a father who loved his son more than anything in the world. Before he left for his shift on September 11th, he gave me this envelope and asked me to make sure you got it when you turned 18. Chief Sullivan handed Michael the envelope, which was addressed in Robert's handwriting, "For my son Michael, on his 18th birthday, from Dad." Michael's hands shook as he opened the envelope and pulled out a letter that had been waiting for him for 17 years. With Chief Sullivan's encouragement, he began to read his father's words aloud. "My dear son Michael, if you're reading this, it means I'm not there to tell you these things in person. I hope you know how much I love you and how proud I am of the man you're becoming. I'm writing this letter because I want you to know what I really hope for your future." Michael's voice began to break as he continued reading. "Michael, I became a firefighter because that's what called to my heart. But your heart might call you to something completely different. And that's not just okay. That's what I want for you. I don't want you to become a firefighter because people expect it. I want you to find your own way to serve others, whatever that looks like." The studio was completely silent, witnessing a conversation between father and son that had waited 17 years to happen. "If you do choose to become a firefighter," Michael continued reading, "know that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about feeling the fear and choosing to help people anyway. Every firefighter is scared sometimes. That's what makes us human. But if you choose a different path, know that I'm proud of you for following your own heart." Michael looked up at Chief Sullivan through tears. "He knew I might be scared?" "Your father was scared sometimes too," Chief Sullivan replied. "Every good firefighter is. What made your dad special wasn't that he didn't feel fear. It was that he felt the fear and did his job anyway because he knew people were counting on him." But Chief Sullivan wasn't finished with this moment that had been years in the making. "Michael," he said, "there's something else. Your father's company, Ladder 21, has been following your progress through high school. We know about your college acceptance, and we know about your struggles with your future. We want you to know that we've accepted you to the FDNY Fire Academy, not because of who your father was, but because of who you are. The choice is yours to make, but the door is open if you want to walk through it." Michael stared at Chief Sullivan, struggling to process what he was hearing. "You're offering me a spot in the Fire Academy?" "We're offering you the chance to honor your father's legacy in your own way," Chief Sullivan replied. "Whether that's as a firefighter, an engineer, a teacher, or anything else that serves others. Your father's sacrifice wasn't made so you would feel obligated to make the same choices. It was made so you would be free to make your own." What happened next was unprecedented in Family Feud history. Steve Harvey removed his suit jacket, his lucky jacket that he wore to every taping, and approached Michael. "Michael," Steve said, his voice thick with emotion, "this jacket has been with me for every show I've hosted. But today it belongs with someone who just learned the most important lesson anyone can learn, that honoring your parents means being true to yourself, not becoming a copy of them." He placed the jacket around Michael's shoulders. Your father didn't want you to live in his shadow. He wanted you to create your own light. Whether you become a firefighter or an engineer or anything else, you're already honoring his memory by being a young man with character, courage, and compassion. Michael pulled the jacket closer around himself, feeling for the first time in years like he had permission to be himself while still honoring his father's memory. I think, Michael said, looking at Chief Sullivan, I'd like to try the fire academy, not because people expect it, but because helping people is what calls to my heart too, and maybe Dad can help me be brave enough to face my fears. The studio erupted in applause, but it wasn't typical game show applause. It was the sound of 300 people recognizing that they had witnessed something profound about legacy, courage, and the freedom to choose your own path while honoring those who came before you. What happened after the cameras stopped rolling became a story of healing, courage, and the power of understanding that love doesn't demand replication. Michael entered the FDNY Fire Academy 6 months later, not as Robert O'Connor's son trying to fill his father's boots, but as Michael O'Connor choosing his own way to serve others. The academy training was challenging, especially when it came to exposure to fire and smoke, but Michael approached his fears with the support of instructors who understood his background and were committed to helping him succeed. Chief Sullivan personally mentored him through the moments when anxiety threatened to overwhelm his determination. Fear is information, Chief Sullivan would tell Michael during difficult training sessions. It tells you to be careful, to be prepared, to respect the danger. It doesn't tell you to quit. It tells you to be smart. Michael graduated from the Fire Academy 18 months later, not at the top of his class, but as someone who had conquered his deepest fears through persistence, support, and the understanding that courage is not the absence of fear, but action in spite of fear. The letter from his father became Michael's most treasured possession, read and reread whenever he needed to remember that his value wasn't determined by how closely he replicated his father's path, but by how authentically he followed his own. 3 years later, firefighter Michael O'Connor, FDNY Ladder Company 21, was working the same station where his father had served, not because it was expected, but because it felt like home. He kept his father's photo in his locker and Steve Harvey's jacket in his apartment, reminders of the day he learned that honoring the dead sometimes means choosing to truly live. The lesson that 18-year-old Michael taught that day extends far beyond 9/11s or first responders. He reminded the world that legacy is not about obligation but inspiration, that honoring heroes doesn't require becoming identical to them, and that the greatest tribute we can pay to those who died protecting our freedom is to use that freedom to become our most authentic selves. Steve Harvey learned that day that the most powerful moments in television happen when you're willing to facilitate conversations between the living and the dead, helping people understand that love transcends time and that the best way to honor those we've lost is to live courageously as ourselves. Chief Sullivan discovered that sometimes the most important thing you can give someone is permission to be afraid and brave at the same time, understanding that courage is not a feeling but a choice, made in spite of feelings. Because that's what heroism looks like. Not the absence of fear, but the decision to act with love despite fear. That's what legacy sounds like. Not a demand for replication, but an invitation to service in whatever form calls to your heart. And that's what happens when a father's love reaches across 17 years to remind his son that the greatest honor is not becoming someone else's hero, but becoming your own person in service to others.